Hello and welcome back to yet another podcast of the In Alignment podcast. Today I'll be your host once again, Canny. And today I have a very special guest who has taken the time to honor us with her presence. And I am very excited to take you on this journey to learn about her journey and what she does and her healing modality as well. So if you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, and if you could please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this positive content so that we can attract more like-minded people and build a positive community, that'll be greatly appreciated. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcast and you would please consider leaving us a positive review, that'll be awesome as well. And for everybody else who are still tuning in and still supporting us, thank you so much. And let's get right into today's episode. So today I have Desiree Lim. And I hope I pronounced that right, because I always kind of I always have my French brain on. And hopefully I pronounced your name right. So Desiree is a Tao Healing Hand healer. Is that how you would say it, or what would you
practitioner
like?
healer,
Practitioner
yes.
healer. And I actually recently just met her like less than 48 hours ago. And it's really interesting because I met her through a common friend of ours. And so my friend always kind of talked about Desiree when she first got introduced to Tao Healing. And actually even before she got introduced to Tao Healing and she was considering it to learn about it for herself, I could feel kind of like a presence around her. And when she started talking to me about the meditations that she has with her, just like some other guests that I've had on the podcast, it felt like someone I knew. And it felt like it was like a bookmark. And me personally, I don't think I told you that, but for me personally, I knew that we would talk. I didn't know how, when, for what purpose, but she felt very close to me. And so finally, I was talking with my friend, and, as you already know, I speak to my spiritual guides, and they told me, hey, you should probably ask for Desiree contact and see if you can bring her onto the podcast, if she would be open to sharing her journey, what she does, and maybe more. And I said, yeah, of course. And we had scheduled an hour conversation that ended up being a 3-hour conversation, because for me personally, it felt like a reunion. And it was like, oh man, where have you been? Like, what have you been up to, And we just had to catch up on life. And I'm really excited to bring her onto the podcast today, because she has some really cool stuff to share with us. So Desiree, if you want to introduce yourself and a little bit of what you do, that will be great.
Yeah, thank you, Kani, for having me. It's very humbling to be in your presence as well. That first meeting we had, turned into this marathon, like you said, reunion, getting to know each other. So thank you again for having me. So I will begin from how I got into Tao healing itself. And I will say that, becoming a healer would be like one of the last things I would ever imagine myself getting into, by trade. I'm a filmmaker, as you know, and I've always been very, very involved in media and filmmaking. My roots come from being a activist in the LGBT community back in Japan, where I grew up as well. So I come from a very media artistic background, and I've never ever thought of getting into, healing as well. So my journey of becoming a healer and learning about Tao healing really actually is even for myself, is something that I've never expected, and just really extraordinary in my own experience, because in retrospect, it has actually already begun
Mm-hmm.
from a very, very young age. You
Yeah.
know? And I realize, you know, when I connect all the dots, you know, I realize that I've always been guided
Mm-hmm.
by my soul to be trained and prepared for this role. And it's a role of a healer that is not quite similar to, as you know, like people coming out to heal people of some ailment.
Mm-hmm.
So my healing, a lot of it is through talking to people like yourself, or through the stories that I tell in films. And now these days, you know, I'm also teaching meditation as well. So I as a healer, you know, I channel that healing through very diverse mediums, put it that way. So it's not like just what healers do is they have consultations one-on-one, and they offer healing. So my healing really comes in very different mediums. Like I said, they're through films, they're through, you know, encounters like this, they're through meditations that I teach, you know, and really anybody I meet in my life. So, and I'm just very grateful to be awakened to this calling that has always been on my path, you know, by Dr. Masaji Gangsha, and who is my spiritual father. He's my teacher, and he's the one who really opened me to my true potential as a spiritual being, as an artist, you know, as a servant, which he always likes to call himself as well, is that we are in fact all universal servants. Yeah, we're here to serve and help each other. So that in a nutshell is how you know, I kind of like woke up to this calling. But you know, the journey itself hasn't been easy, and it has been a very long one before I reached this point in my life. And if you would allow me to go back where I started, is that I was born and raised in Malaysia, and right after high school, because of my personal connection with Japan, because I learned I started to train as a martial artist in Japanese fencing, known as Kendo, since the age of 17. And then for about 2 years, every year in the summer, I would go to Japan for really intense training camps. And I've always felt that, you know, Japan is where I really wanted to be, you know, as I grew older. And so right after high school, I moved to Japan to continue to pursue my training in Kendo, as well as my university education. So I ended up growing up in Japan as an adolescent. So all my adolescent years has been in Japan. You know, my career as a journalist in broadcast TV began in Japan. So I would say all of my firsts are in Japan. Yeah. So Japan is like my second home until, you know, and then I also, you know, became an independent filmmaker as well. You know, I discovered the LGBT community in Japan. That's where I came out as gay. And I know back then it was the 90s. There's not even internet back in those days. You know, we didn't even know how to find each other. So I kind of just found the community, you know, through actually literally I found a community by reading like a free paper and looking for a phone number to call in classified ads. That's how it all began, you know, for those of us who came from that era. So so I found my community, and you know, back then, because it was such a age or era of infancy in terms of the gay movement in Japan. You know, it was in the 90s. There was no media. Nobody was making films about, you know, gay life or you know, lesbian life, you know, in Japan. So, and nobody was telling our stories. You know, we didn't even exist because we were so underground, you know. So you know, back in those days, you know, the way that we communicated was through like newsletters that you put into the mail, and you receive it, you know, in like as a newsletter.
Like you
paper.
had your own newsletter?
No,
Or
there,
like
there was
how did you, like, did you have like codes that you communicated
oh no,
in?
well, they're like I said, they're like underground clubs, right? So
Ah,
so you get into the community, and then you know, you're talking about the entire country. Like, how do you keep in touch? There's no
yeah,
internet in those days.
yeah,
So you join a club per se, and then
right.
you subscribe to this newsletter. And there's a group of women who used to write these newsletters, and I think they came out, I think monthly or something. And you would receive it in the mail, and that's how you read about what's going on in the community.
Wow.
Those were the days.
Wow.
That's how it started. Nobody made films.
Yeah.
You know? So I have to say, I was one of the pioneers who started to do that. So I started making films about the community, you know. I mean, I didn't actually start off making documentaries, even though my background is very much in news and documentary. But when I started, you know, making films back in the community, I was actually making fun stuff. I was making experimental, you know, music videos and comedy sketches, because, you know, I just wanted to bring some life and joy, you know, fun, you know, to the struggles that we've been already going through, which is not being accepted by the mainstream, and we don't even exist to begin with.
Did you feel the impact of that, like when you were in Japan, since technically you didn't exist, right? But would you feel the actual impact, or were you kind of just like ghosts in the country?
Yeah, because you would feel it. It's like you know, there's like in the AIDS movement, I don't know if you remember seeing like people with signs saying silence equal death.
Yes.
Yeah. So it is not a cliche.
Wow.
Because you know, if we comply to silence, don't exist. Yeah. And that's the kind of lifestyle that most people in those days had. You know, we didn't talk about you know, the community, you know, to the mainstream people. You know, even after I started working in TV, and I had a partner back then. You know, we were like common law. I didn't have a life because I couldn't talk about, you know, what I was doing on the weekends. I had a partner.
Wow.
I didn't want to lie that she's my roommate, so I don't talk about like why every weekend I'm hanging out with my roommate.
Go get a life.
Yeah, right. So so I never talk about my life. You know, and that's what it feels like to be, as they say, in the closet. You know, and I did that because I knew, you know, like my colleagues in media, they would mention things, you know, now and then, off and on, like homophobic things, you know.
And it was normal back then. Like you couldn't even rebel against it. It was like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, it was normal. So, and I heard what, you know, how they would describe, you know, people who are gay or call them, you know. So I didn't want to, you know, to confront that kind of, you know, hostility, you know. So I just kept quiet, and then went on, you know, with my work. But it came to a point where, you know, I was literally living a double life. Right. You know, came to a point where when I thought, okay, enough is enough. So I left. That's one of the reasons, not the only reason, I left mainstream media. And I became freelance and started making even more films, like longer form films. And I made my first TV feature in Japan, you know. And it was like, it was like the first feature in Japanese that's about, you know, two women falling in love. Yeah. You know? So, and back then it was a big deal. So that's sort of like how I began my journey as a filmmaker. But I never, so how does this all connect to, you know, who I am today? And, you know, I didn't know that what I was doing was actually part of my own healing journey, you know? And in retrospect, now I see it very clearly that I've always been guided to tell stories to give voice to people who are marginalized, people who need a lot of healing, you know, like myself and people in the community, and a lot of people who are minorities, you know, refugees. I've made films about refugees, you know, about women who are not treated well in their society, you know. So I've always felt that calling to tell stories about how people who are suffering really need our compassion, our, you know, our empathy, and our awareness of how we can help to change the consciousness of our community, of our society, of our country. You know, so that's how I started. And I never really thought about it as healing. You know, back then I came from more of a place of actually protest and rebellion, I have to say. You know, I was being very vocal about the injustice of what I felt, you know, all these marginalized people were experiencing, you know. So that's where I came from. I would say, yeah, I came from love, but it's not the kind of loving compassion that I know now.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So, and in retrospect, you know, I've always, even as a kid, knew that I wanted to tell stories.
Really?
As a kid, I used to like to draw. I used to write stories, and I knew that I was going to be some kind of person. Some, you know, would be playing some kind of role
somehow.
Yes, some kind of storyteller in the world of media. I just didn't know exactly what. But I will also remember at one point, you know, it's just, this is how I in retrospect, I knew that this is my soul speaking to me, you know. And I've always had a very strong voice within me, and and my soul has always guided me to do the most outrageous things, like, you know, leaving home at 18, you know, going to a country where I don't even speak the language. You know, when I went to Japan, I didn't speak a word of Japanese, you know, and there I was, you know, in this country, like within a year, I had to master the language to get into university.
Right.
So it was just like, you know, my family wasn't completely supportive of me leaving, you know, home that early, and also going to a country where I don't even know the language. How am I even supposed to get into the, you know, into university?
Right.
So, but I knew very strongly that's where I was supposed to be. You know, and I even though my mom especially, she was completely against me leaving, and I chose to. I literally, you know, in retrospect, it felt like I ran away from home, you know.
What did that feeling of knowingness feel to you? Because like for me, when I was younger, I always had that deep feeling, inner knowingness as well. And with the choices as well, similar to you, with some of the choices that I made back then, you know, my parents would say, "Oh, you're so rebellious," and to me, I was like, "But I'm not rebellious. I'm just trying to understand what is happening in me, and then to fine tune it so that my reality matches how I'm feeling." Because when I would listen to some of the things that they would tell me, especially with my dad, because I you know, I always mention this on the podcast, I didn't have the greatest relationship when I was younger, but he was basically mirroring all the things that I also needed to heal. And when he would tell me certain things, it wouldn't make sense. And so even though some of the things that I felt inside maybe didn't make sense externally, they felt good, you know, they felt better. And so that's what I would follow. So how was that sense of knowingness for you? Like, how did you even have the word soul?
No, I didn't. You know, I just know that I'm not meant to be in my country. I knew that for a very long time. I knew you know, the politics of my country is very complicated. You know, and I think I shared this with you when we spoke personally, is that when I was born on this planet, you know, I didn't even feel I belonged here. I didn't feel I belonged to my family. I didn't feel that I belonged to my country. And I've always wanted to run away, you know, like somewhere, you know, anywhere but here. Yeah. And they were all very sort of like rational reasons, you know, from my family, because I didn't, you know, grow up in a happy family. So that was rational. From my country, because, you know, my country, you know, has always been going through a lot of political strife, and being born as a Chinese, you know, I felt like a second-class citizen, because we actually don't have the same rights as the Malays, right? So we don't have the same opportunity to get into a public university. We don't have the same opportunities to become civil servants, you know? So I've always felt like, you know, I was born like a second-class citizen, you know? I didn't belong. And so those were the rational reasons of me wanting to run away. But of course, you know, my soul knew there was more, right? Those were like on the surface, the reasons for me to leave and to bolt, you know, to another country, to Japan. And then when I went to Japan, I was below a second-class citizen, you know, right? I wasn't even a citizen, you know? And back then in Japan, you know, they were so new to even foreigners in the country, because it's a very homogenous country, very homogenous country. So if you are not Japanese, you're already inferior. Right. You know, and especially if you don't speak the language. Yeah. So in the beginning, I didn't speak the language. So I experienced another form of racism and sexism in that country. And but it was through those experiences that actually shaped and formed me, you know, to who I am, and to understand the pain and suffering of people who are put in that kind of environment. So I'm grateful for everything, you know, I've been through, because it's allowed me to have more compassion for the suffering in the world. And it really, you know, has prepared me in the role that I'm playing right now today as a Tao healer, because this is how I know how to actually connect with people who have been in vulnerable places, who have been ostracized, who've been, you know, discriminated, who's been persecuted, you know, in order to be able to connect with them at that level and see eye to eye with them, because I have been there. Yeah. You know, and that is really, really powerful to a very powerful background to have, so that I can actually bring the Tao healing to connect with them heart to heart, soul to soul. Right. Like, I'm not talking, you know, about certain suffering, you know, certain experience from what I read in the news or what I've heard other people gone through. I have been through it myself, a lot of it. I'm not saying, you know, I've been through everything. Obviously, you know, we're all unique in our own ways. So I've always known that I'm supposed to go to a different culture, go to a different country. And even, you know, my soul told me, I mean, in my intuition, you know, back then I thought it was my intuition, told me that I'm supposed to go to the West, but before you go there, you need to learn more about your own people, about the culture that you come from, about Asia, you know, what it means to be someone who was born in this region. So I listened, and so I spent, you know, my first half of my life in Asia, and then you know, came when the time was ready. Then, you know, my soul told me, okay, now you can go to the West. And so that's where, you know, that's how I ended here in Canada, and this is where I was, you know, where I've always meant to be. And if I think about it, there were only two places that my soul wanted me to be in the West. I mean, the West is huge. It could be in Europe, it could be in Canada, it could be in, you know, the US. Yeah. But my soul is very, very specific, and it doesn't tell me why. It says either Vancouver or San Francisco. Wow. Only these two. And both were places where Dr. Master Shah
Of
have
course. Yeah.
you know, those were the only two places that it wanted me to go. So long story short, I ended up in Vancouver, and that's where I met Master Shah. You know, and by meeting him, you know, my life just entirely took a different turn. And in the beginning, you know, when I first even heard his voice, and I've shared this story with you, you know, someone played a CD where he was playing, who was singing what we call you know, your soul song. Everybody has a soul song, and he was singing his soul song, and I had no idea who he is, and I just wanted to cry. I was so embarrassed that you know, it was by I was with this friend, and it just hit me so deeply, you know, hearing his voice, you know, and I had no idea why, you know. I was so touched. And that was the CD that came with the book called The Power of Soul. So you can say that the first moments, just even without knowing who he is, just listening to his voice, he has shown me, given me the first taste of what is the power of soul. You know, he awoken me in that moment to the power of his soul, as well as the power of my soul, because we connected. You know, and our souls, you know, know each other just like your soul knows my soul, you know, so well, even beyond our own comprehension and rational mind, you know. So so that day, you know, I bought the book, and I read the book, and I was very intrigued by his wisdom, but I kind of left it at that. I think at that time I was still not ready to embrace, you know, this path, you know, of healing. And I've always been a very avid reader of spiritual books, you know, Eckhart Tolle, you know, Wayne Dyer, Thomas More, you know, all the books, and I thought it's just one of those books. And then I think it was about a year later, this time I ran into you know, some people who were giving out some flyers for a screening of a film about Master Shah. Right? So the next encounter was through a film. First it was a book, and then it was a film, and that film was a story, a documentary about the life of Master Shah, like how he met his teacher and how he became the spiritual healer that he is. So again, you know, I was very touched, you know, by his story, and I remember tearing up as well, you know. And it's very rare that I watch a documentary that I actually, I mean, you know, with dramatic films, you know, yes, you know, I would tear up and get emotional, you know. But with documentaries, not so much, you know. But with
different, it's different. Like in a dramatic film, they're actually looking for that emotion, right?
You're right. Yeah. They're evoking you, you know, with the music and the drama and all that. But with his film, I was really touched. I was really touched by his heart of service and the miracle healings that he's been able to bring to people around the world. So I was really touched. And I remember, you know, as I walked out of the theater, I remember this thought came to my mind, you know, saying that I am going to introduce, you know, whoever, you know, in my life needs healing, you know, to him. And at that point, I didn't have, you know, friends who were sick or, you know, anything like that, but someone's mom actually, you know, her image, her vision came into my mind, and I thought, okay, maybe if she needed help one day, and I definitely introduced her to Master Shah. Not that she was sick then. I just know that this person has always had chronic conditions, you know. So lo and behold, you know, and I think it was less than a year later, the same person, this, you know, my friend's mom, ended up in the ICU, you know, and with some kind of blood infection, and the doctors didn't know what to do with her, and she was really slowly slipping away. And it was around the same time that I saw in the papers that Master Sha was in town. So I thought, wow, you know, we should go and check him out and see, you know, if he can help, you know, my friend's mom. And so I went to his, that was the first time I went to Master Sha's workshop, and he had a healing days workshop, which is healing event. It's free. You know, people can come and experience for one night, you know, what he has to offer. And that was like my, I would say my first taste of Tao healing, you know, and it's remote. And all Master Sha does is that he connects and he offers healing, you know, through the power of soul. You know, so so my friend, you know, who is a very spiritual being, and she could see with her within her third eye, you know, what is going on in the soul world, in the spiritual world, when Master Sha offers these healings. So he saw what's going on, you know, in the spiritual world. So he knew that this is something, you know, quite
powerful.
real. Quite powerful. So she right away, you know, asked Master Sha to send some healing blessings to her mom remotely, you know. And then she had to leave because she had to go back to take care of her family and her mom. But for me, you know, there was like no looking back. You know, my soul was not going to let me leave again. So and you know, just to go back, you know, the first time I actually saw Master Sha in person, you know, I still remember this to this day, and I'll never forget that moment. You know, the moment he walked into that hotel room, again, I wanted to cry. You know, my soul was just so touched by this presence. And of course, you know, we've known Master Sha's soul, you know, for many lifetimes. And I wanted to cry, and I didn't know why, you know, at that time. So it was during the retreat that, you know, Master Sha was asking the audience, you know, like, who would like to become a healer? And for me, you know, I had no idea what I was doing, but my hand just shot up.
Your body responded. It was like your soul did not want to let you go. It was like, hey, what's happening?
So my soul, of course, like, you know, yes, finally, you know, I mean,
we made it.
We made it. If you think about like how long it took me to get there, you know, it was like a long time coming. So, and at that time, you know, in my rational mind, you know, again, it was the reason was because of what I saw happen to my friend's mom. And I thought to myself, you know, if something happened to my mom who's in Malaysia, I can't do anything for her, you know. So if I can, like Master Sha, offer remote healing to somebody who's not there and you know, miles away, why not? You know. So that was sort of like my only really motivation for becoming a Divine Healing Hands. Back then it was called Divine Healing Hands, which is the modality that Master Sha has as the first level healer in the modality. And today it's called Tao Healing Hands, but it's essentially the same thing. So it was through that retreat that I became a Tao healer, and the training was actually supposed to take place about a month later, because the workshop, the retreat that Master Sha was there for was not specifically Tao Hands. He just wanted to give us that transmission, but then the training was going to take place about a month later. So I received the transmission, became a Tao Healing Hands, but I didn't know what to do with it, you know, because I haven't gone through the training yet. But after the retreat with Master Sha, I still don't know how to use the Tao Healing Hands, but I called my mom, and it just so happened that she fell and hurt her back, you know, and I haven't talked to her for 2 weeks, so I didn't know about that. So she said to me that she was in a lot of pain, she couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat, you know, she didn't break anything, but the pain was just excruciating, and she went, you know, for traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, nothing helped. So I said to her, I said, Mom, you know, I just became a divine healing hands healer. I don't even know what it is really, but are
But
you
I got something.
I got something. I don't even know if it works, but are you open to receiving healing? And she was very open, you know, surprisingly. I didn't know that she would be, but she was. And so for 5 minutes over the phone, I just did whatever I thought, you know, was appropriate to send her healing, and then hung up. And the next day I called her back to see how she's doing. And then she said to me, she was like what my mom was like a little kid. She was like over the moon. And she said, you won't believe what happened. I dropped a pen on the ground. I bent over, picked it up, and I thought, wait a minute, how did I do that? There was no pain, and I remembered. You know, and I couldn't bend my back at all. How did I do that?
Yeah,
you know? So that was my first divine healing hands, you know, miracle healing. And you know, I was in Vancouver. My mom is in Malaysia. You know, it's like 50,000 miles, you know, or more away. You know, so I thought, wow, you know, what did I receive? You know, I had no idea. So that was the beginning. That's how my whole you know, Tao healer journey started, and I started to study more diligently with Master Sha, and went to a lot of other workshops, and started to grow as a spiritual being, and learned more about the power of soul. And so I have to say, you know, by meeting Master Sha, he really helped me reconnect deeper with my soul. I've always been very connected and guided by my soul, as I shared. But with Master Sha's wisdoms and his empowerments, my connection with my soul really deepened to a level that I would have never dreamt of. You know, and it's not just with my soul. You know, what he's empowered me and you know, all his students to do is to connect with higher souls. You know, higher souls like your spiritual guides. You know, the spiritual guides who are your invisible teachers. You know, can be guiding you. Yeah, who can be guiding you for a higher purpose. You know, so connecting to these higher souls, you know, whatever your belief system is, you know, if you, Jesus is Jesus, like, you know, believe in Guan Yin is Guan Yin, or Mother Mary, or Krishna, Ganesha, whoever. So, but the purpose of connecting to the higher souls is not just to, you know, for the physical success that we all aspire to have, you know, have more wealth and more success in our career and relationships. There is a higher purpose for our soul, you know, and so these beings are really here to help us really reach our higher potential, which is not just the physical accomplishments, you know. There's a higher purpose, and the other thing that Master Sha really helped me woke me up to is to my higher purpose.
So how would you define Tao healing? What is Tao healing? Who is Master Sha in a few words, and who can come to that type of modality?
Right. So Master Sha is a grand master of many ancient arts. He started learning Tai Chi when he was like 6-year-old, or 5-year-old, you know, 5-6-year-old, you know, and he started to be trained by a lot of very accomplished masters in Qigong, Tai Chi, I Ching, Feng Shui.
Wow.
And he is also a Western medicine doctor, MD, from China. He also became an acupuncturist. And so he, in the beginning of his journey as a healer, he came from a more conventional approach, which is as an MD and also as an acupuncturist. But he's always had a lot of wisdom from the ancient arts that he would apply even in his acupuncturist, in his acupuncture. He actually developed his own school of acupuncture, which is really powerful in healing a lot of very difficult conditions, like people who are deaf, you know, or even blind. So he had a very, very successful business as an acupuncturist in the Philippines. He actually moved to the Philippines from China, in the Philippines, and then he's always been a very spiritual being, like, you know, Guan Yin, who's you know, Buddha of compassion, came to Master Sha when he was 4 years old, to guide him as his spiritual teacher. So he has a very, very deep connection with Guan Yin, you know. So, and he's been trained by her as a spiritual being, you know, since a very young age. So, and then he, of course, he's very connected to the divine. And he's always been guided by the divine. And so one day, he was guided to move to the West, just like I did. You know. And he moved to the West, and he continued to practice his. He wasn't an MD anymore, because he's not an MD here. He's an MD in China.
In China,
so he continued his acupuncture practice. So one day, the divine told him, "Okay, you are now going to become a teacher healer of soul healing." And he was told to drop his acupuncture practice completely. Completely. So for years, you know, he just went around to teach soul healing, you know, using, back then, you know, he founded this medicine called Soul Mind Body Medicine, which is actually also from the lineage of his teacher, Master Guo. He was also trained. His physical teacher is Master Guo in China, who is a very accomplished traditional Chinese medicine doctor and acupuncturist, you know, who had his healing center in China. So he was trained by Master Guo as well in herbs and traditional Chinese medicine. So Soul Mind Body Medicine was founded, and he became his lineage or disciple to teach Soul Mind Body Medicine to the West. So he started going around, you know, not doing acupuncture anymore, but teaching Soul Mind Body Medicine, especially as well as soul healing. So after Master Guo, his teacher was divine. Divine guided him what to do with this whole soul healing, you know, how to apply soul healing, and then that evolved into Divine Healing Hands. So he became a soul healer, teaching people how to heal from the level of soul. And basically, the principles are quite simple. You know, because we are spiritual beings made of energy, matter, and soul. So with Western medicine only looks at the level of matter, which is the physical. And then traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture is more focused on the energy.
Right.
And then with Soul Mind Body Medicine, it looks at everything. So it's the soul, mind, and body, everything as one. So it's like what your show is about, is realigning energy, matter, and soul.
Yes.
So and in Master Sha's organization, we have, like, you know, healers who are from the background of Western medicine, and we even have a quantum physicist with us, who's a very powerful healer trained by Master Sha, and she and Master Sha co-founded this science to explain how soul healing works from this perspective of physics. So they co-founded this science called Tao Science. Tao Science. And so from the perspective of Tao science, basically the soul is essentially information. Information,
Yes.
frequency, vibrations.
Yeah.
So when we heal, when something is out of alignment, it just means that the information, the message in that thing, that matter,
Yeah.
is out of alignment.
Yes. Yes.
It's disconnected.
Yeah.
It's not in alignment. So what soul healing does is that we bring the higher frequency vibrations from the higher souls. Yeah, the higher souls meaning the higher information, frequency vibration, to come into that soul to realign or transform the negative, the misaligned, back into alignment.
Right.
So that's how soul healing works.
Right.
And so with Tao Healing Hands, the transmission that we've received is actually a higher dimension, frequency into our hands.
Yeah.
Our hands.
Yeah.
So our hands, we can say that, it has this glove in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has these very high frequency vibration directly from the Tao.
Right.
And so as Tao Healing Hands practitioners, we become a channel. Those kinds of higher frequency vibration from the Tao to come through us and transmit it to, the souls that need healing, so that their souls, whatever the soul is, can realign. And when I say soul, I need to perhaps elaborate a little bit about that. Sure. Is that Master Sha teaches that everyone and everything has a soul.
I agree with that. Yes.
Right? So we, as human beings, we have what we call a body soul. So the soul that I've been communicating with or have been guiding me in my whole life is my body soul.
Right.
Right? So that's the consciousness that guides me. However, if we go back to that one sentence secret that Master Sha teaches, everyone and everything has a soul, also means that every system, organ, cell in our body has a soul.
Yes.
So essentially, this being is a collective of souls. This universe, this planet is a collective of souls. Right? And every soul carries its frequency vibration. Every soul carries its field. So what Tao Healing Hands does is that, we channel the high frequency, the pure frequency, to help realign. Let's say if you have issues in your heart. Yeah. So the soul of your heart is out of alignment.
Right.
There is some corrupted message, information in it, disconnection.
Yeah.
So this higher frequency vibration, higher message can be sent to you remotely, so that it helps the soul of your heart or your back or your shoulders or your head. Everything has a soul, right? Yeah. And so the frequencies go into that soul to start to transform the negative back to the positive.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why I've always, now less, but when I was younger, and even until like a few years ago, like whenever I would experience some type of, especially physical pain, or if my body's going through something, the traditional way that people know is like, hey, go to the doctor or do this, or you need to take some Advils. And I've always rebelled against medicine. Like it's been over 15 years that I haven't taken any pharmaceuticals. And to me, it never felt like a pain. It always felt like something that is just like out of alignment. But I never had the words when I was younger to explain what it is that I'm feeling. And so then I would just come out again. I would come off as, or you're just rebelling. Like, why don't you want to go see a doctor? It's like, I don't know. I never felt that a doctor could help me. But I do feel like, doctors are helpful in some ways, like if you need an operation or something, like some type of major surgery. But I'm always thinking more on the preventative side as well. And then it comes to how do you feed, your mind, your body, your soul, so that they can all come into alignment and work together for you and not against you,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's what we do as Tao healers, is that, our modality of healing is a supplementary, it's complementary.
Yes. Yeah.
It's complementary to any other modality that you choose
Mm-hmm.
to undergo, Western medicine or, TCM, acupuncture, Reiki, whatever your modality is, it's
Right.
complementary. There's no side effects to it,
Right. Right.
It will only enhance your
Yeah.
healing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So in our community, we actually have a lot of different healers, who come from actually different modalities. We have Reiki masters, we have acupuncturists, we have TCM doctors, we have MDs, we have nurses. So chiropractors, so we, psychotherapists, all kinds of different healthcare professionals who have come to learn Tao healing because they feel that they can have more in their toolbox.
For sure.
To help their clients, their loved ones, their patients, in a more powerful way. And I can say that, Tao healing is different from all the other modalities because it heals on the root cause. The root cause of not just physical ailments, but actually the root cause of any.
The underlying message, basically.
Yes, the underlying message. So it's not a modality just to heal sickness. Relationships, it can heal finances, it can heal anything, really.
Right.
Because again, we go back to that principle of everyone and everything has a soul.
Yes.
So for as long as that thing that you're trying to heal has a soul, it can be healed. If we apply the right technique and the right measure, there's the possibility of it being healed. I'm not saying that we can heal everything. But there's that potential of healing. And what's so profound about Tao healing is that it really heals beneath the surface. It goes to the deepest root cause of why this misalignment, this corruption of message, this pollution has happened in the first place.
Right.
So there's underlying messages for us to perhaps go deeper within to discover. Right. All of a sudden you have this back pain, what is that, the reason behind it? Maybe there is a reason behind the back pain,
Right.
Just like how, Wayne Dyer always says that, there's a spiritual reason behind everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's what Tao healing is about. And again, as a filmmaker, when I started to learn to become a Tao healer, I didn't quite bring the two together. My filmmaking is still my filmmaking, and as a healer, I'm a healer, and I didn't really aspire to become like a full-fledged healer, who would be seeing clients and offering healing sessions. I didn't see myself that way.
Right.
So studying with Master Sha was for me more actually, yes, I was healing, my loved ones and myself, but again, it was not like in the full-fledged, having some kind of business or service, offering it to the public. So, but I've always been pursuing this path because as a spiritual being, I've always been very very hungry to learn, more about, why we're here, what is this whole universe about, how does the world actually work, not on the materialistic level, but what is the
deeper
meaning of life, like deeper, why are we here? So as I continue to study with Master Sha, he gave me the answers. The biggest questions that I've had since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, why am I here?
Everything
why,
clicked.
Is there a meaning to all of this?
Yeah.
So Tao Healing gave me that answer, and one of the most profound answers that he gave me, or he taught me, or showed me, is that the purpose of life is to serve. And he has, in his mission, empowerments that he says, I give my life to service. That is his empowerment. So, and that is who he is.
Wow.
Every day, every moment of the day, is there's only one thing that is on his mind, is how can he serve?
I feel like that's something that now is becoming more and more prevalent in my reality as well. And but on that note, Desiree, I feel like you and I can go on forever, because there's just so much to talk about, and it's such a rich, topic. And I just wanted to ask you, do you have any last words, or is there any message or anything that you feel you want to share before we conclude this episode?
Yes. So actually, on that note, about service, this is no better time, really.
Yes.
For more people to hopefully respond to that calling of service, because Master Sha, teaches us that we are actually, in a very, very new phase of evolution for this planet, and not just this planet, but the humanity and universe at large, because we're actually in an era called Solar Era, and it's already began in 2003,
right?
And it will span for 15,000 years. So why is it called Solar Era? It goes back to the what we talked about today. It is the era where the power of soul will blossom. So humanity, is facing many, many challenges, as we know, and Master Sha calls it the Mother Earth transition, because Mother Earth is going through a very painful rebirth, and it is because something new needs to come forward, for humanity to evolve to the next phase. And that phase is to awaken to the power of soul, the power of soul within us and around us and beyond. So this Tao healing is that kind of like the turnkey. Really tap into the wisdom and the power of soul, by invoking and connecting to the higher powers within ourselves. Our higher potential is in our soul power. And when we are able to learn how to do that, the possibilities are just endless, limitless, really. Because up till now, humanity has been operating on the level of the mind. And the ego.
Which is very limited.
And that's why, humanity has created a lot of suffering for ourselves, from our ego, for our mind, thinking that science, technology, materialism are the answers to happiness and to success, without and really disconnecting our our true essence, which is our soul.
Yeah.
From from its true potential. We went into science, technology, not to say that they're not good, but we've gone into the wrong direction.
It needs balance, and we have forgotten.
Yeah. So we got disconnected from spirituality. We've gotten disconnected from the bigger universe. And became like the masters of machines. Right? And slaves to machines. Master and slaves at the same time. Of machines. Beginning from our own cell phones.
Oh yes.
Right? So and that's why a lot of people are feeling so disconnected and isolated. There's that that very, very deep desperation in a lot of souls, and we know that, of feeling empty and disconnected, because ultimately we've become lost. As a collective humanity, we've gotten lost. We've got connected from our true essence. By pursuing everything that's tangible. That's that's material. And we forgot about taking care of our souls.
The other dimensions.
And taking care of the planet. And just put ourselves, our egos, like I think, in the center, without considering the repercussions that come with our actions. So Soul Light era is an era to help us reconnect with our souls. That's the simplest way I can say that. Reconnect with our souls and awaken to what is truly our higher purpose.
Right.
Our higher purpose is not here to serve machines or machines to serve us. Our higher purpose is to help each other evolve as spiritual beings. And this physical world is really and then an end to the means to help us help each other.
Definitely.
Just like the car, is just a vehicle to get us to a destination. It's not the destination itself.
Right.
It's the
journey.
But we have kind of mistaken the car as the destination, as the prized possession that I have to buy to be successful.
And
then the car becomes the destination.
I always say, like, for people, any person who's in any type of pain or suffering, it's also your blessing. There is potential in your pain and in your suffering. And for anyone who's listening to this podcast today and all the other episodes, but specifically this one, if you are in a state of, is it disarray, or you are, maybe you don't know where to look for help, or you've tried everything and nothing is or has been working for you, or maybe you're just curious, I would very much like to invite you to try Tao Healing. I have had a beautiful experience with it myself. It's an amazing energy. And even from my conversation with Desiree before we recorded this, I got to know it a little bit better. And it's I hope that you do come and try Tao Healing, because I feel like it's one of those modalities that really has a lot of truth in it, and that is non-invasive, that is very easy, and it will just meet you wherever you are. And it's very loving. It almost feels like a warm, loving mother who's there to take care of you. So on that note, I think we'll conclude here, unless you have any last words.
Yes, great. Thank you. I thank you for sharing your very positive experience about Tao Healing. And one last thing I'd like to add is that Tao Healing is a modality that actually empowers you to be part of the healing process.
Yeah.
So it's not us as, you know, healers just offering you healing, but we actually also empower people to learn the self-healing techniques, so that the healing process can be collaborative. So it's a collaboration.
I
We
love
offer
that.
it, and we will teach you self-healing techniques that you can continue to practice and to use in your everyday life, so that you can not only heal, but also prevent and sustain your healing results. So that's the other aspect of Tao healing, is to be able to learn more, empower yourself to become in a way, you know, an innate healer, awaken your own innate healing abilities. You don't necessarily have to become a Tao healer yourself, but you will be able to tap into that self-healing potential that everybody has. You know. And lastly, I want to invite, you know, your listeners who are from the LGBT community to please come to my online meditation that I do. I've been doing this for 4 years now at Qmunity, which is the Lesbian Gay Center in Vancouver. I do it online every Saturday. It's called Rainbow Light Meditation, and you can reach me at Rainbow Light Meditation at Qmunity, QUMUNITY.ca. If you didn't get that, if you just Google Qmunity, you will find me.
I'll have all the links in all the social medias. So yeah, that way it'll be easier for people to find you.
Right. Thank you so much. And we're also, and I'm going to also be launching a Facebook live show called Love, Peace, Harmony, Pride Live. And it is a live show that will offer meditations with this very powerful healing song called Love, Peace, and Harmony. And I would love to do another show with you if you give me the
Absolutely, I would love to.
to share with you the power of love, peace, and harmony.
Yes.
This song, which I will in a moment, you know, have you experience.
Yeah.
So I would love to do that. I mean, if you would do another show, I'd love to do a meditation with your listeners, you know, so that they can also experience. And this Love, Peace, Harmony song also operates on the principles of Tao healing. So beautiful. Yes, great. So thank you again, Katie, for having me today.
Thank you so much, Desiree. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence. You know, I always feel, you always feel someone's energy, and you never know how it calls onto you, but sometimes it doesn't even have to be in words. Sometimes just being in the presence of someone, or just hearing someone's voice, that carry their own vibration, which I know that, you know, some of my listeners will definitely connect to it. And so I'm very grateful for you. I'm grateful for your time. I'm grateful for your journey, for everything that you've done thus far, that you are doing. And I very much look forward to more collaborations, definitely. And thank you so much to the audience, to everybody who's already supporting us and still are. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Until then, you guys take care.